Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Carl Fitzpatrick.
Southeast Radio.
While the pharmaceutical industry is renowned for its rigorous regulatory and compliance requirements, with Ireland now a hotbed for international life science companies, the emphasis on compliance has never been greater. Pharmalex Ireland provides specialised services to the pharmaceutical, biotech and medical devices industries, and its country manager, Jane Lyons, joins us now to share her insights into this very area. Jane, we'll be discussing Pharmalex Ireland, but first, I'd like to get an insight into your own background and the career path that you followed.
Good morning, Carl. Sure, thanks very much. So I started off my career in the UK. I worked for business communication centres in the centre of London, in the city and in Kensington, and from always on an operational side. And from there I moved into publishing, and I published Management Buyout Review. I was very interested in businesses and management teams buying them out, and the effect on the employees and the possibilities and potentials that employees had to build and grow businesses. And then when I returned to Ireland, I started working with the Confederation of Irish Industry, supporting the Small Firms Association. And then when the CII merged with the Federation of Irish Employers, we became IBEC. And I worked as secretary for the Director of Enterprise, Trade and ICT. And then following that, when I had young children, I decided I'd go out in business on my own, because I could then, I thought at the time, predict my own hours. And I started my own event management company. And then when I decided to go back out into industry, I joined Action Coach Business Coaching here in Ireland. And then from there, I joined Pharmalex Ireland in 2008.
So what is Pharmalex Ireland and what services do you provide?
Well, Pharmalex globally is the leading service provider to the life science sector worldwide. We focus on all aspects of the pharmaceutical, biotech, med device product life cycle. So our team globally works with our clients to identify challenges, find solutions, help them bring their product to the marketplace, and then once on the marketplace, to ensure effective product maintenance all of the time, with compliance at the very core of everything that we do.
And I know that some of the projects that you work on, interestingly, are those that are university spin-offs.
Yes, so we work with all client types, from a university spin-off right the way through to the large multinational pharmaceutical companies. So we help companies that are just starting off in the discovery phase, right through clinical trials, through regulatory affairs, preparing their dossiers, and then once they receive their authorization, into commercialization of the product, and then all the way through to product discontinuation.
And what is the greatest challenge that those companies face?
I think companies are extremely busy keeping the day-to-day operations going. And then you have a lot of new legislation which may come down the line, and it's the interpretation of that legislation and what it means on a practical basis. So we go in and we work with the companies and we take a look at their operations and we say, okay, this is what is relevant to you and your operations, and this is what you need to implement to ensure your compliance. Also, we have a number of subject matter experts in microbiology. So if there's any really nitty-gritty technical queries that clients have, we can bring them in and they can just take an outsider's viewpoint of what's happening and offer advice and solutions to our clients. So we can work with the client for an hour on a technical query, or we can work with them for a year or 2 years on outsourced programs.
So what approach do you take to compliance when engaging with a client?
So we are acutely aware of the pressures on companies from a commercial perspective and targets that they have to achieve. So we would always go into the client and say, okay, we do a gap analysis, take a look at what's happening, and then help them to achieve their compliance while really taking into consideration their current commercial pressures.
And Jane, you have a great insight through your role as the country manager with Pharmalex Ireland into the pharmaceutical sector. So what are the emerging trends coming down the track?
I think the adoption of digital technologies in clinical trials that's enabling the decentralization of readouts in clinical trials through mobile phone applications, that's going to be a real game changer because it's allowing the industry expedite the rollout of clinical trials across multiple regions. I think also obviously ATMPs, the personalised medicines. So this is offering tailored options, enhancing the effectiveness of treatment for patients with very rare diseases. They, for me, would be the two big things.
And of course, here in County Wexford, we're always looking at ways of attracting new companies into the county. So what advice do you have for a county like County Wexford to attract more life science companies into the county itself?
Look to see where is the talent, what is the local talent in the area, what are the nearest ITs, how can you work with those to develop programs for the life science sector, take a look at all your greenfield space. What can you do in terms of offering a turnkey solution to pharmaceutical companies that want to come in, or if they want to create their own manufacturing sites? Where are the greenfields that you can offer them? What are the incentives? But really, for me, it's talent is key. They will go where the talent is because there is such a shortage of the specific technical expertise in Ireland, given the size of the sector, that if we can produce more people that can go into the life science sector, the more companies we'll attract into Ireland.
So what are those considerations that the key management have within these international life science companies in terms of where they're going to locate across Ireland?
Access is hugely important. Talent pool, again, people being able to work in the operations, and the facilities, access to the facilities and utilities in the area. Coming into Ireland specifically, it's understanding what the requirements are from the HPRA. A lot of international companies will come to Europe and they don't understand necessarily the European legislation, the EMA regulations, which differ very much so from the FDA. So what are and even within that, what are the local nuances in Ireland? You know, each country then has their own specific additions that they add on to the legislation. And so when we meet with IDA clients, if we're invited to meet with IDA clients, we will help them understand the compliance requirements when they come into Ireland.
And from your insights into the market, Jane, why are these international life science companies choosing Ireland over any other European country?
I think it's twofold. I think we're English speaking, which is really helpful for companies coming in from the USA. We are also our talent pool. We are known in the life science sector. Our colleges, our universities are internationally recognised for the programs that we run. And also the facilities that we do have IDA Ireland. I think they do an incredible job at attracting in life science companies. Across the globe, they have offices and they really do an amazing job at bringing them in. And then having, as we mentioned earlier on, having these turnkey facilities ready and available for them to come in.
And how important is it for us to have life science-based research and development capability in the region?
Well, research and development is always incredibly important because without research and development, no new drugs would be created or products enhanced. So they are always, and they would come out of a lot of the spin-offs from the universities we would see. But obviously, manufacturing is probably the biggest thing that we see with these companies coming in.
And why is Ireland such a competitive space when it comes to manufacturing these products?
The HPRA is known as being quite a strict regulatory authority. So if product is being able to be manufactured in Ireland in a compliant way, it pretty much is going to get all around Europe. Our HPRA would be known as one of the best, along with the MHRA, they would have had a huge influence in the development of the legislation at EMA level. So I think that's one reason why they come to Ireland and why Ireland is so good for these companies coming to Europe.
And is technology playing a more important role as time goes on in relation to the pharma and life sciences sector?
Absolutely. As I just mentioned there, the fact that clinical trials can be decentralised now is incredible and will really, I think, be a major game changer, allowing the expedition of clinical trials across the world. It's constantly, people are looking at better ways of delivering the product to the patient. So if targeted medicines now for chemotherapy, you can target the actual cancer itself rather than chemo being put all over the body. If you look at the medical device sector here in Ireland, it's absolutely huge. And it is certainly these combination products where you have a device that is delivering the product directly to the core of the infection or the illness is really important.
And Jane, what's your outlook for the Irish pharmaceutical sector over the next 10 years?
I would see significant growth. I think we are now known as a country of excellence. I think the pandemic highlighted significant problems with supply chain, which has been outsourced over the last 10 years to Asia. And I think companies are bringing back their manufacturing operations into Europe because the shortages of the supply chain during the pandemic really highlighted the vulnerability of not having manufacturing close by.
And Jane, finally, for anyone listening to this morning's programme that has an interest in starting a business in the pharma space, what advice have you got for them?
I would advise them to talk to Biopharmaceutical Ireland, who is the industry representative body in Ireland. I would say go to NIBERT as well, another fantastic support group for the pharmaceutical industry, or phone us, phone Pharmalex, and we will be very happy to talk you through the landscape and the requirements and what is required, but most importantly, to speak to your peers, because obviously they'll come from a background of life science background. So speak to your peers within the industry.
Well, if you've just tuned in, that was Jane Lyons, the country manager with Pharmalex Ireland, and I'd like to thank Jane for her contribution to this morning's show.
Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Carl Fitzpatrick.